Get up and get out. Get out. Get out.
I have a question for you.
Say Christ is Lord. Say Christ is Lord. Say it. You say Christ is Lord. Get out. Get out. Christ is Lord.
Hello and welcome in to another episode of Offensively Accurate, hosted by yours truly, Atlas Thugs, aka White Boy DeVoice, aka another racially ambiguous groiper. And welcome into the Clubacaust. Welcome in. Matter of fact, this is now the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th cost that we've experienced since Nick Fuentes' generational run. And that's largely what we're looking at with the backlash here. We have no arrest from Don Lemon. And I just got to be honest. I'm so disheartened by the general kind of nature of what's occurring right now. We have a lot to get into. A lot of stuff I want to cover from the last episode that I wasn't able to reach or cover in the 2-hour span because we had Nick and Tim Cass go on. I made the video yesterday about the experience that was on there. And just to touch on that for just a minute, I was thoroughly surprised just by the nature overall of the Timcast IRL episode with Nick. I wasn't expecting that to actually be the guest that was going to be happening, the collaboration, even though Nick did ultimately kind of give a nod to it. Donnie Brook is in here. Holy Donnie, everyone, round of applause. Round of applause. Donnie Brook is back for the first time in like 40 streams. I haven't seen this man in like 8 months. Congratulations to Donnie Brook, man. I haven't seen you in a long time. Hope you are doing well. Hope the family's doing okay. But it has been a whirlwind of reactions. You have somehow, out of the aftermath of everything going on, you have this insane kind of just weird conglomerate of Andrew Tate's blaming Sneeko. There was this beef between Myron Gaines and Nick that was kind of like partially touched upon. Nick's kind of, playing a bit of defense for the Tates. And it's just, it's chaos. And so some of these events we had obviously in the first aftermath of the red pill kind of mania. We have clavicular, and a lot of people immediately were like, we don't care about the backlash. Now it's unfolding into a bit bigger of an incident, and we're going to explore that. I do want to also say at the beginning of this, shout out to Mainstream Dissident. Mainstream Dissident ended up getting a podcast episode with Corey Mahler, and you can find that on Mainstream Dissident on his YouTube channel. And I would encourage people to go check that out. I'm going to watch that after I finish streaming sometime later on tonight. But in terms of going back to Tim Pool, this Tim Pool and Nick Fuentes collab, I enjoyed what it was. The issue, however, was a lot of people, and here's the thing, knowing the history of these two, most people see this, and given the nature of everything that we've gotten from Nick Fuentes coming from Charlie Kirk, many people are taking this more confirmation as like, he's a Fed, this is the circuit, this is how it goes. But what doesn't make sense about that is the fact that he for one, he does like a dissertation on Barry Weiss, explains her pedigree, where Barry Weiss comes from, why she's a Zionist, who she's connected to, her connections with Yoram Hazony, where she comes from, the Hebrew Institute, right? And then outside of that all, he's talking about breaking the taboos of Hitler, being pro-white identity. And so in all of that, you kind of sit there and you go, so is that what the Fed wants? Like, is this the argument from people? And so more chaos from there. I think there's just kind of a general kind of reactive network around Nick at this point. Just people who are irritated. We will cover a bit more from James Fishbach and Christina Pushaw. I didn't cover that on Monday. I want to cover that today. And also some more comments that were made by Fishbach, because it's kind of a mixed bag with Fishbach right now. For some reason, I feel like people are kind of glossing over the Pushaw stuff a little bit. I don't like that. However, it's hard to not like the stuff that he's saying. And so to me, it's a bit of a mixed bag. For more headlines, we're going to cover the Red Pill Mania, the Red Pill Backlash more specifically. We're going to cover Nick's comments, his Telegram stuff. I watched all of this. I cannot tell you how thoroughly disgusted I was by Andrew Tate. I'll just cut the shit. I was disgusted by Andrew Tate. I was disgusted by the fact that he threw Sneeko under the bus like 10 times in the first 20 minutes. He played the song. I didn't play the song. I mean, it's to me, it's just pathetic. It's sad because this is supposedly like the guy who's going to beat the Matrix, right? Like, you know, I'm the one guy standing up against the Matrix. And that's kind of where the cards fall into play, which is seemingly what Nick Fuentes has hinted at, and a couple other people as well too, is that they flew too close to the sun. So the idea here being, are the Tate brothers captured? Or is it more so of the fact that no matter where they go, they're under threat constantly of being arrested, thrown in jail, having charges being strummed up against them. So Nick highlights when they went to Florida, I believe this was about last year, or at the beginning of the year last year, when they landed in Florida, and all of a sudden the Attorney General there in Florida is like, and now I have charges. And there's one random lady in Florida like came out. She's like, you know what? Actually, he did do these things to me, and they were going to cover that. So I understand a bit of that. I understand that Nick Fuentes is friends with these guys. He talks to them pretty often. And there is an element of being loyal to your friends. I get that. But as Marcus Young pointed out in the Discord, I'm not friends with the Tates. And in the words of Nick Fuentes, I'm not wearing a jersey. I'm not getting paid. I was disgusted by how quickly they collapsed and folded. Andrew Tate's putting out statements. His lawyer was putting out statements. We don't stand for anti-Semitism. And it's like, brother, I mean, like he does these uncensored streams on Rumble. You know, he's shirtless doing the Nazi salute on there. It's like, so it was just sad. And it was disgusting also on the element of just like the nature of how it occurred too. Just with the way that Patrick Bet-David and Adam Sosnik just talked. I mean, like Vinny Osana like doesn't say a word for like the first hour. Like he's barely even there. And it's largely Sosnik just driving the conversation over and over and over again. I kid you not, to the point around the 50-minute mark, he's crying. He's like, well, he's trying to not cry, but he's clearly like getting very emotional, talking about PBD and how it's just all this, like, you know, nobody would do this. The point is clear. The point is very obviously clear that the whole world will stop on a dime if you push too hard against the one singular group that remains, that is not allowed to be criticized, made fun of, etc. Now, I think most people are there's still a bit of a difference in terms of like how the justice system and legally and at large, the differences in the races. But I would say so far, YouTube with like people like, can't remember her name, Lily Gaddis, I think is her name. You know, there's people like that in the circuit, woman propaganda. It's a lot more open season on blacks and transgenders, but there still remains the one group that you cannot criticize. And the one thing that I literally that blew me away is after Adam Sosnik, the whole time, this whole 50-minute interview, he's like, I don't really think that you did it. I think Sneeko definitely pressed the button. You know, Tate, I know you're not like that. You know, this whole hour-long spiel about how Andrew Tate's better than this and all of the whinging, the hand-wringing. I'm going to play you this clip. No joke. This blew me away. Let me go find it here. In this clip, it's like about the 46-minute mark here. And it's from Adam Sosnik. Forgive me a second. I have to go find it and pull it up. But I want you guys to see this, okay? This is an hour in, about 46 minutes in, of just just constant bitching and moaning about how it was the most disgusting thing they'd ever seen, and wow, this is why you can see my dislike there too. And it's all these different values. Andrew Tate's better than that. There's one portion even just before this too, with Patrick Bet-David is talking how when he was watching the national championship game between Indiana and Miami, he's thinking about how Trump is sitting in one of these box seats with Dana White, and how they showed the camera to Dana White, and Dana White's doing the U for Miami, and Patrick Bet-David, he's like, I just can't help but think, you know, Andrew, like, you're supposed to be in that booth. That's where you're supposed to be. What is that even supposed to mean? Like, Dana White shouldn't even be up there. Dana White is a I mean, Dana White's one of the more egregious individuals in the political space, and it's kind of shitty he's that close to Trump. But this is what they're saying, right? They're saying Andrew Tate's better than this. He should be standing above this. And here's the final question Adam Sosnik wants to ask about Nick during this whole event.
For 5 minutes, let me go. Perhaps.
I just have one last question on this topic.
Sure.
Did Nick at least lose his virginity that night?
I have no idea. But
Play one more time.
This topic.
Sure.
Did Nick at least lose his virginity that night?
I have no idea.
Did Nick at least lose his virginity that night? Okay, I'm going to be honest with you. Did Nick at least lose his virginity that night? Here's where the rubber meets the road. I don't give a shit about your Jewish secular world values. My religion isn't the Holocaust. My religion isn't the Holocaustiny. It is Christianity. So when Adam Sosnik makes these small little gestures there at the very end, why in the ounce of fuck would I take any advice or moral clarity from somebody who doesn't clearly have honest and very overt and obvious Christian values? It was the biggest tell. That's what we're concerned about. Like that would have been a good thing about the night. You know, terrible that they played this one song for 45 seconds, but did Nick at least lose his virginity and go against the word of God? These people will tell you who they are. You just have to listen for it. Adam Sosnik is hold on. I'm on YouTube. Adam Sosnik is disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. And what was also disgusting was Patrick Bet-David tries moving the conversation on a couple different times. And Sosnik won't let him. They keep going back to it. They keep continually coming back to it. Now, I've seen Sneako's obviously reacted to a lot of this. Now, I haven't watched any Sneako, to be quite honest with you. I've seen a lot of these captions, and so it seems like Sneako's been going back and forth. The sad thing about the overall instance is, I would say, like, Clavs even had, and you're going to be surprised by this and attack me if you want to, but to me, Clavs' shorter, more concise response of like, I don't give a fuck, and I will do it again. Like, it means quite literally nothing to me. Like, I will do whatever. Like, I want the free speech. He was said something to the effect of like, I'd rather be banned from every club in America than you tell me what I can and cannot say. No other response needed. And the fact that the Looks Maxer has the best take moving away from this. I mean, where are we? Like, what are we doing? Now, obviously, a bit of a rant on that, but it was kind of funny too. You know, they're throwing Sneako and Myron under the bus. That was like the names they kept bringing up. You know, Nick definitely didn't play it, and they're giving defense for Jay Waller. They're like, well, Jay Waller listens to country music. You know, he definitely wouldn't be playing that. And here we are. You know, and Anthony Tony pointed out earlier. You know, here they are, like the Miami nightclub. That in between, you know, hip hop songs of like, you know, smack that bitch. I'm gonna go, you know, I don't even listen to rap music anymore, but obviously they're promoting violence and gang violence and degeneracy and obviously like attacking women. And the thing is, I'm not going to defend women, not in that sense by any means, but the club's constantly pushing this stuff. And then one song switches over to Ye's song of Heil Hitler, and the whole world stops. So, and Nick did have the best take on that by far, which is they're pushing all of this. There's violence all around, but the whole city of Miami literally completely stops because Jews were mentioned. And one thing I have to mention too, Adam Sosnik continually kept saying like, Miami don't play that. You know, you might be able to get away with it in Mamdani's New York, but Miami don't play that. Dude, there is quite literally nothing more cringe than hearing Adam Sosnik say that more than once. Miami don't play that. Okay? Like the whole world, how dare you say Jews do the X, Y, and Z? We're going to ban you from X, Y, and Z. How dare you say Jews control this. So Sneak, even in the aftermath, is like being video called by some like mogul. I don't know who it is, probably Jewish, I would imagine. I think he is. And supposedly it was like an old friend of Sneako's. And he's like, I can't believe you did that. We're done forever. Like, don't call me your friend. And I'm just sitting here like, Christianity is being like spit in the face upon every single day. you can quite frankly watch Jesus's image being tarnished in multiple different avenues. We just moved away from like the wicked, where like they're blatantly perverting and manipulating things. We watch as white people in general are being genocided and replaced in their own nation. Not announced, not a single care in the world. No gear, no cog even stops. No slight bit of a difference. But you play a song for 40 seconds in a nightclub that was already playing a bunch of other degenerate shit. And now the world needs to stop. And now they're getting like threatened. They're being banned from all these different. And so who cares about being banned from the clubs? But we're sitting here going, like, I'm sitting here looking at this going, could you imagine even if white people had like a half of a percentage of the reaction that the Jews in the Jewish community and the Zionists had to the Clubacaust, as they do to, I don't know, categorically all the other ways that we're affected in life? That's clear and obvious. There's evidence. You could write. And and I do just come back to it, which is like, when you think about the races, like every race has a strength, every race seemingly has weaknesses, and like it seems to be like the weakness of the white people is lack of unity, inability to react. Like, you sit there and question it, you go like, obviously this is unsustainable. But the optics and the disparity of the reaction between this one group versus everybody else. But, a bit more on like, obviously preaching to the choir. A lot of you guys know this, but just like, obviously this general reaction to this is just insane. But, to go back to the outline and not to be ripping off on tangents, some of the other stuff that occurred today, well, my prediction on JD Vance is coming true. He had a bit of a conversation with, I think it was Fox News. I want to be sure, but I think it was Fox News. And he starts laying it out. JD Vance starts laying it out that Americans will be pissed if they continually keep getting no justice from, now he's largely talking about the Senate. He's hesitant to say the administration, but JD Vance does lay it out. That he sees it. He sees the anger. And to me, this is the beginning of the start of JD Vance's separation from the Trump administration. And like I described like it 2 years ago, because I had said then, the Trump administration will fold when the media starts crying about deportations, much like they are right now. And we're literally just 2 or 3 weeks removed from sitting here and praising the administration for some of the numbers that AF Post had posted, showing that they had moved to a more broad-reaching deportation effort. But what's that? Oh no, the New York Times. Oh no, the New York Post. Oh no, these fat Mexicans are being packed up in clown cars. Like, oh no, it's the worst thing of all time. We have to stop immediately. And now Trump is going back to, we need more people. We need to bring more people in. We just need the people. So, and as Nick was describing, it seems like there was an inside call from the administration that was panicking on that. And so media has now packed them back in, and now we're back to questioning legal or illegal. What are we going to do with these deportations? There's been a lot of FOIA requests that have been coming out despite this. Now, the Trump administration has been touting that they've deported 600,000 people, but the FOIA requests do not show that at all. The FOIA requests show that it is closer to around 350,000. Leaving some disparities there. However, that goes up from, I believe, the beginning of the year to September, at the end of September. So it misses out some of the end of the month, but regardless, it's lower than what they're telling us and much lower on pace than what we would need to actually affect change. But to JD Vance's point, the reason why I had said this, knowing the prediction on the administration would be a failure on the deportations, largely that being the number one ticket item the platform is running upon, they fail on that promise, and it looks like they're going to fail it as on their way out too. That means JD Vance can't sit there and point to the administration he was just a part of and say, well, look, don't you guys want more of that? Don't you guys want 4 more years of that? Because right now, if you ask the people, the average American, they're going to say, I do not want 4 more years of that. What a scam. What mega's a joke. So he's got to start separating himself now. He's got to start aligning himself in a way that shows the people that he's with them. He's with them and he agrees, he gets their anger, and he's like, listen, I'm trying to tell the Senate, These people aren't going to be happy. And to me, that's the start of himself positioning himself aside from the administration so that when he comes run full force in 2028, he will be able to look back and say, no, I told him, I tried telling him, the guys, we got to ramp this up. I'll do it better. So this is obviously the start of that with JD Vance. We'll watch that video. I have that clip in here. There's also an update on Tenant Media. Now, this will be a complete sidebar, but it's something that I've covered and followed like for a hot minute. And the Tenant Media update was essentially is the fact that Lauren Chen the investigation's essentially over, and that Lauren Chen is just kind of in the middle of a tiff over like the funds that was withheld from her, which is like her savings in one of her bank accounts. So she had a bit of a conversation with one of the ladies who was on the American Journal today, which I was confused because I thought the American Journal was Harrison Smith. So maybe there's another host who just wasn't there that day. And so that's what she's at. So it seems like the investigation's over. No arrests will be filed. Lauren Chen seems to be getting off, but she's just not getting her funds back. And one of the reasons why I wanted to bring that up and remind people of that. Thank you for the gifted very much. I appreciate that, Mr. World Champion. I appreciate that. And also appreciate seeing everybody in here, not just Donnie. But thank you very much. The gifted. Oh, is there somebody can get the Discord link to Mr. Chris Coco? I would appreciate you very much. Thank you. But thank you again for the gifted. The reason that I had covered this, and I wanted to pay a lot of attention, was the Tenant Media. This case roped in a bunch of what you would consider alternate media. Is that what you'd say? Yeah, alternate media. You would consider them alternate media, which was largely like people like Timcast, Lauren Southern, Taylor Hanson, Lauren Chen. I'm probably forgetting another big one that's on there, but those are like the ones that I could think of right off the rip. And they were building up this kind of network amongst themselves. And a lot of them were like, consistent guests on Timcast IRL. He seemed to be kind of the figurehead of it outside of Lauren Chen. And it was in this case being explored and falling through that it quickly turned and we got what we got from Lauren Southern as well, which actually I was wrong about that. It wasn't the Tenant Media case that gave us the discovery on Lauren Southern. It was her custody filings and battle in the courts against her ex-husband, who is an Australian intelligence officer who we still don't know who he may be. In some reports, he goes by Mitch, but Rollo Tomasi calls him Aaron. And the reason Rollo Tomasi is important in that story is because it was Lauren Southern's ex-husband who was sending evidence and information to Rollo Tomasi. Rollo Tomasi was the person who would end up publishing it. Or what the evidence of what he had found. There's a bit more to it because Brittany Venti is involved in this. And Brittany Venti had actually sent Rollo Tomasi like bad information on like there being a potential abortion with the affair with Destiny. Now that's all hearsay and rumors, so I'm not going to get into that. But Lauren Southern, this is like, it was all this big cascading effect. And to see it now, and it's like 2-3 years down the line, I think it's almost been 3 years now at this point. And nearly every single one of those creators who was involved in that and outside of Timcast is essentially kind of gone nowhere or MIA'd. Lauren Southern gone. Alex Stein, I think, was potentially a part of Tenant Media, but I don't know where he's at now. It looked like he went with a Blaze, but he's not there anymore either. But that whole network of people like immediately eliminated and are gone. And it reminded me with the Lauren Southern element, as I was looking at this stuff, Lauren Southern has recently made a bit of a comeback in light with also Ashley St. Clair, who also, she probably just needs to be called She Who Should Not Be Named. And but Lauren Southern making this kind of comeback, it's just concerning in the element that I would imagine there are a lot of conservative like men and pundits who might not know the full story with Lauren Southern because she did a good job kind of wrapping it all in and like keeping it away from the presses. I imagine her team had a part of that too. She's not somebody to be trusted at all. So if you see Lauren Southern and at any point in time making more of a push to come back onto the scene, reject her, say no, you had an affair with Destiny, you married a Fed, you need to stay away from politics. You need to go find a nice home in Australia somewhere or Europe or wherever you are. Maybe marry one of the Tate brothers because you loved being around them. Just go away. And I just say that because I've seen Lauren Southern tweeting a lot in the last few days. Do not let her come back. She must not be allowed to come back in the conservative space. She can come back as a liberal. She is excised from the conservative movement, period. I just want to give you an update on that because there is a video of Lauren Chen going around talking about the funds being held by the United States government. We have 3 things from Fishbach today too. Fishbach specifically, we have the Mamdani tax that he talked about. Specifically, one of the good things with Fishbach is when he talks about the white genocide element. And I love that aspect of him. And then there's a funny bit where he actually cooks Max Nordau over the car and some of the finances behind Fishbach. And that seems to be the common thread with Fishbach right now, or that a lot of people are attacking him for his lack of financial structure and that he doesn't have a bunch of like big donors behind him. One of the next ones, obviously the collapse on the deportations from Donald Trump. But again, Mike Huckabee, like I called it literally 2 days ago, he gives a full-fledged response to the patriarchs and the heads of churches there in Jerusalem. And it is so revealing. Mike Huckabee gives us this awful, awful response, and he's rightfully being called out for it. So we'll look at that too. Michael Knowles has somehow stepped in on it with Christian Zionism. How this storyline has developed, I literally have no idea. But now he's like going back and forth with Mark Levin on the timeline about Christian Zionism. And this is just showing you like the level of willingness at which they're ready to attack. And Mark Levin is just getting ratioed left and right, like true ratios, like more replies than likes, less so like inside the replies. And we'll take a little bit of a look at that. There's also a Minnesota high school teacher who got into an argument with a student, and it's just pathetic. We'll take a look at that. One thing from the Trump administration that I saw posted by Christopher Rufo that I'm not seeing many people talk about is that there is, I believe it's partnered with the small business, it's like with the SBA, so the Small Business Administration, I think that's what it is, with the SBAs. The Trump admin is helping women and minorities. They're coaching them to help better weave disadvantage narratives so they can take advantage of a slush fund to the tune of billions of dollars. Listen, I'm just reporting the news. I'm just here reporting the news. And then we have more this weird woman drama and the Marvel Rivals scene, which I don't know if I'll get to that at all. But this was me reading you the headlines and some of the rants here too. But we're going to go back to the Red Pill Backlash, talk a little bit more about the what's going on and what Nick had to say on America First. Let's get started.
Cut straight through, offensively accurate, that's the view.
So just to recap, the Red Pill Mania, that's what I was kind of tagging it. This Clavicular, Sneeko, Andrew Tate, Tristan Tate, Jay Waller, I forget his first name, Nick Fuentes, the crew, Myron Gaines, the Fresh and Fit was there, Fresh, whatever his name is, Walter Weeks. Major kind of, reunion kind of stream. These guys have typically been seen in the same scene with each other. Now, it was news to a lot of people that was the first time for both, not only Nick Fuentes going to a club, but also Nick and Andrew Tate meeting for the first time. That was also the first time Clavicular had met Andrew Tate. And it kind of went from a desktop stream from the original 3 to then the Tates were brought in. They were at this house party, then they're at the club. And it really wasn't anything kind of too insane. It was just a lot of people enjoyed watching it. I think one of the funnier things I had seen was a lot of people were talking about Zerka, wanting Zerka to be there. Zerka being one of the other ones who was kind of a big name that was involved in a lot of this. And it was funny because both Andrew Tate said this and Nick said this too, and on different streams. But it's increasingly clear that if you are one of these individuals, right? Forgive me. You're one of these individuals in like the Red Pill or the Manosphere, or like you're considered a Nazi or this America First kind of space, can't go anywhere without it being an international incident. Can't do nothing, can't say nothing, can't talk to nobody, can't show up to a game. It'll become an international incident. Which one, I do think that shows a level of clout, and these are kind of like, that was a grouping of the top influencers a lot of men watch and listen to, and look up to even. And it was funny because Nick's talking about at the beginning of a show how, it's supposed to be the year of the lock-in. We'll come back to normal. The generational run's kind of over. Let's get back to normal. We'll get back to the brass tacks. We're going to talk about the actual operations, get into the details. And it starts off the complete opposite. It says a Wigga in motion will stay in motion. A wing half in motion will stay in motion. I thought that was funny. Turns out, though, this club, it's like the Vebeldor, the Vembador, whatever it's called, who cares? Nobody needs to go to it. They fired like 3 people for it. I would imagine whoever was one of the persons who was like playing the music, whoever heard the request and then pushed it, probably got fired. I would imagine the person who coordinated with, what's his name, Walter Weeks, Fresh and Fit podcast, is probably also fired. As the way I heard it described, they bypassed all security and just got bottle service right off the rip. So I would imagine the people who were like hands-on and talking to these individuals were the ones that were all fired and sent away. Vendome, thank you for that. I appreciate it, man. And in addition to that, Steiny from the Nelk Boys, who is, you guessed it, Jewish, put out a tweet to review bomb the club, and then he deleted it shortly thereafter. Most everybody called him out for it. Can I put the link for the NAV Discord in the description? I believe the NAV Discord is in the description. It might not be, though. I could be wrong about that. But he's like, I'm just kidding. After it turns out that, he realizes that what he did was just illegal. It's called something like tortillas from Mexico. No, I'm just kidding. It's like tortillas, like interference, something to that effect. So he kills it. And then he's like, don't worry, guys. I was just joking. And then Nick probably gives maybe the best kind of dissertation over the overall perspective of what this is. And instead of me just, going in on it, obviously I will. I wanted to play Nick's, minute 15-second rant, because I think he nails it the best here, which is essentially the idea that like drugs, sex trafficking, prostitution, twerking it up, degeneracy all around is completely fine. But the one place, literally the only place they will draw a line is anti-Semitism. And it's funny because it's like the meme from SpongeBob with like the circle and the bear. It's like these Jews, like the only thing they'll care about is they draw this big line, circle around themselves. It's like everything's fair game, but you just can't say anything about me. Cannot cross this line. It's funny because the bear like can't cross circle lines or whatever, and he's like pointing at him. I'll be at you next time. But here's this clip. I want to make sure I play this one.
Hate speech, or the normalization of extremist ideology has no place in our Miami Beach community, our nightlife, or any public setting. Yeah. Cocaine, sex trafficking, prostitution, that's fine. Here in Miami Beach, we have values. All right. Hey, listen up. Here in Miami Beach, here in South Beach, okay, yeah, we do drugs. Yeah, prostitution. You want to go and date rape somebody. You want to go and fuck on the floor of the club. You want to fuck on the beach. You want to shoot people. You want to be a gangbanger. That's fine. But we draw the line at anti-Semitic songs. Okay? This is South Beach. We have values. We don't tolerate that kind of immorality in our nightclubs. Asshole. Like, really? Seriously? That's really what it's come to in our country. You want to be like a complete degenerate, hey, knock yourself out. You want to play a funny song? Sue them, arrest them. You're not welcome here. You're banned from the club. You're banned from McDonald's.
And you really can't say much better than that. And the other thing too with this is like people were making fun of Nick because he's like just drinking a Red Bull. He's like he's not drinking alcohol. He doesn't want to be around the club women. And like that, I relate to that. Like that's me. Like when people say, "Do you want to go to the club?" I say, "F no, dude." Like I don't want to be around a bunch of degens. Like I just don't. And that's not to offend anybody, but I think most people here understand the nature of what club culture is. It's fights. It's broken relationships, it's bad decisions, it's a place where Christians shouldn't be spending a lot of time. Now, I mean, that's no thing against Nick, but Nick is, people relate to that. Even Howling Mutant put out a tweet, somebody who notoriously goes at Nick all the time. He in paraphrasing, he was like, but this is maybe the most decent thing out of this whole scenario is watching this guy awkwardly be involved in this club in a place that like he typically doesn't go, and for good reason. And it's just evolved into, once again, the same level, maybe not as bad as the Tucker Cost so far. It seems different Jews took different offense to this. Now it's Adam Sosnik's time to cry and have this full-blown meltdown about it. And so when you think about it, not only are they carrying out both the genocide in Gaza, but also they're carrying out the full-blown replacement here, the great replacement here in America. They promote the most disgusting and degenerate trash. They are actively some of the people who have laid the groundwork for some of this mass immigration. They're some of the people who actively lay out all of these massive welfare systems. But the one thing that they're going to scream and moan and just melt down over is because a black guy made a song about Hitler and it played in a club for 40 seconds. Now something must be done. It wasn't anywhere before that. None of these moguls had shit to say about quite literally any of the other incidents have been going on, and it's because they are partaking in it. They are the people who are doing it, for the most part. And so I'm going to tell you right now, we do not care. We do not care. And the thing is Dave Portnoy probably already gave a statement on it. I should probably mute Dave Portnoy, to be honest, because he's one of the most disgusting people. But there's no like compromise. There's no, and that's like the worst thing about what that Andrew Tate did the whole time, was he's kind of like deflecting, making these excuses, and that's top G. That's top G for you. Here's the man who supposedly got all the women in the world. He's got multiple wives and children that the world doesn't know about. Racks on racks on racks, and no soul. But no soul. And let's be honest, that's always been the problem with Andrew Tate, is that he doesn't believe in the God that is Jesus Christ. Now, he might acknowledge it, but he doesn't center his life around it or those values. And thus, what do you get? You get a vapid, hollow man whose primary goals and values revolve around money and women. And what does he lack the most? He lacks conviction. And what I was hoping for from Nick would have been a less so of the play on the friends, but I get that and I understand it. What I would have liked to have seen would have been an Anakin Skywalker moment, much like I reference all the time, of someone hunting him down and saying, you lack conviction. Like, you deserve to be smacked down for this. How dare you back down like this? And Adam Sosnik, of all people, you lack conviction. And once again, though, we have to take our own side. This is an element of like, Andrew Tate. And now, truth be told, Tristan Tate is a little bit of a different story. And I did appreciate the way they defended the Olympics. But if that's Andrew Tate's prerogative, it's more so to be concerned about the legalities of what he may have to go through. I'm sorry, we got to take our own side, and you need to go stay at the table with PBD. If that's where you want to be in these box offices with Trump, doing the whole kind of shebang and the song and dance that you're some kind of bigwig, go for it, dude. But there's no compromise to be had. There's no moment where we're sitting here going like, man, maybe we should rethink our message. Maybe we should go a little bit softer. No, we're literally being replaced. We're being censored nonstop. I found out literally earlier today from Stu Peters, because I went through his Grok program and his AI analysis, and also from Ryan Matta. I'm being actively censored on X. I'm having my replies deboosted. I'm suspended from the creator program, and I never even applied. And we're being told like we need to repackage our message. We need to think about better ways, because think about the Jews. Think about it's such a literal fucking joke, dude. I can't even like feel decent or be decent with this, because it is such a this is one of those moments, man, where it's no one's gonna say it, but it is obvious this is a bit of a stare down in a chest beating match. And I'm telling you, I'm not standing down. I'm not for 1 second looking away and going, well, you know what? Maybe they shouldn't. Fuck that, dude. Play the song for 20 minutes straight. Put it on repeat. Hell, I pushed the button. I was there. I did it. Okay, who are you going to blame now? Come at me. In fact, I would say the opposite. The messaging needs to go further. We need to stand 10 toes down and lock in, and not dark maggot, because that shit's gay. But lock in, dude. We are not going back in the box. We are going to engage with these problems. We are not going to be treated like second-class citizens in our own nation. We are going to talk about the Jewish question. We are going to talk about the problems that it has caused. We are not for 1 second more going to continually to be treated in this way. And it's like, and here's the thing, if this is how it's expected as a white man to engage in the conversation, fuck you. If I'm expected to get on my hands and knees and be dog walked around while we're actively being genocided, there's no evidence on any of these guys' grounds that they could factually back up beyond what the media consolidation will allow them to. No, like quite literally, no. This is our country. This is a Christian nation, and we are going to return to what it was. You can either peacefully leave, or if you are intentionally trying to grasp and control and rip away. And here's the thing. I'm not asking. None of us should be asking. A single person should ask. Because you know what? Jews didn't give me the right to the First Amendment. Jews didn't give me the right to any of my rights. They didn't give me the right at all. What gave me my rights was God. So I'm not asking for my ability to speak. I'm going to speak. This is my country. And I don't give another damn F about any of this hand-wringing, about, the Holocaust, whatever. Because it's very obvious that you don't give a shit about the problems that we deal with. So if we can maybe move to a position where maybe we can start treating these things as they're real and we'll interact with like actual history and not this kookery dog shit that these people like Barry Weiss put out all the time, then it is what it is. We are enemies. There is no unity here. Our goals are opposite. People like Adam Sosnik want a multicultural, just global homic, just secularized, Jewish, no Christian value society. I don't want that. I don't want a society where after a 50-minute rant for a grown man who's pushing 50, who is still worrying about maybe what his family setup should be, is crying on a podcast because of an event that he wasn't even at that might have affected people he barely knew. I'm not asking. And how dare you even sit there and have the entitlement to think I need to ask? This is our country. The First Amendment is very clear. The people who died and shed blood on this soil, shed sweat on this soil, was very clear in what they wrote for what this nation was to be. I've read it, and I know what it is. And like many of you here, you know what the history is. You feel it, you see it, you know it. So this whole stick game and song and dance of pretending like these things aren't happening, it's like, okay, well, we're done then. Conversation done then, actually. Because for one more, I won't do it for one more second longer that we just pretend like the worst thing happening today is that people are waking up to the reality of the Jewish question. I'm not apologizing, and I'm not asking, and we're not going back in the box. I'm sorry. Now, Mike Huckabee and the evangelicals and for all those bitch-made Christians, like, and I shouldn't even be saying it like that, but that's what it is. I mean, all these people who cannot think for themselves, who can only be given points that they can only recite what was told to them in the last 24 hours. I don't care, but I really don't care. My children and my family and the people I care about are not going to be further harmed, victimized, abused, violated, misled because you are too effing stupid, or you lack the ability or competence or just the conviction to look it up yourself. It's not my problem anymore. And it never was, quite honestly, in the first place. So, but I will read through you the Telegram response of Nick. Nick did put out a Telegram early in the morning, I believe today, giving a bit more details on where he kind of was at with Telegram on Tate's. And see, he kind of says that PBD should be dissected a bit more than Andrew Tate. So I'll take you to what that was. It's brought to you by Dr. Groyper. So here's the first one. And it says, a lot of people are unhappy with Andrew Tate's interview on Patrick Bet-David yesterday, but the pushback should be directed at PBD, who allowed his emotional, insecure co-host to hijack the interview and turn it into a struggle session. And here's the thing. Before I even get much further into that, I would say if I was to tear it out and I was to go, who should get the most blame? Well, I would say Adam Sosnik. He knows what he's doing. then you would say, okay, Patrick Bet-David, because he's partaking in it and he's allowing Adam Sosnik to run it. And then Andrew Tate. It's not to say like, I do get the element and the argument from Nick about the whole, being packed away and being thrown in jail over BS charges and running that. But at the same time, what did you expect? Did you expect you would take the Matrix on and like they're gonna like slap you on the ass and be like, all right, dude, like we're gonna calm down, we'll let you in, dude, like, all right. No. They will fight tooth and nail because to them it's all or nothing. And and for some reason, people here on this side are not playing by those rules. It is all or nothing. You have to play by the rules that your opponents are playing by, or otherwise you're not even playing the same game. But he continues, he says, after watching the entire interview, I discovered that Patrick tried to move the conversation along multiple times, but the aggrieved minority co-host kept dragging it on with the usual sanctimony. These are all very serious businessmen pushing 50 years old. They built their brand on being anti-woke or no nonsense or something, and they are hand-wringing for 50 minutes because the song played in a nightclub. Seriously? I would have expected that Patrick Bet-David would have had Tate's back, and the table of conservative grown-up men would call the backlash ridiculous. But sadly, I was disappointed to see the extent to which that company is either compromised or severely misguided. And he continues, this is where people like us have to go for the mountain. When you see this much acrimony over such a complete and total non-issue, you realize that the entire world is under a spell. Take a step back. A song played in a degenerate club in the disgusting armpit known as South Beach for about 45 seconds, and the city government and ADL have elevated this to a crisis. You're a 50-year-old grown-ass man, and you buy into that nonsense, you should know better. Everyone should know better, and everybody should immediately stop allowing these gangsters to emotionally blackmail us. Slavery is a choice. And you can have an argument over, who you want to blame the most. It's fair. They're all deserving of blame. But let's do that then. Let's go for the mountain. Let's not let this sit idly by. Because you know what would actually be a meaningful thing to like maybe be upset about, or to say like, hey, like what's going on here? Like that's a no-go. Well, we can talk about the story that no one's talking about at all that we got here in our community submissions, and thank you for House Leotardo for sending that in. But Trump, Charlie Kirk, and Jesus Christ were banned as role models from a public school. Nope, first time hearing about that today? Sure it is. Why is that? Why is it that that story is not being heard about? That's another small event happening in a small town that affects a lot of people. Not a word? Did Patrick Bet-David talk about that today? Did you guys wake up to Don Lemon being arrested after terrorizing a church? Did any of those left-wing agitators get arrested after they terrorized a church and walked in, preventing the service? Has Harmeet Dillon done something besides talk on a fucking podcast? Sorry if I got loud. No. But what the world is stopping for is a couple guys, some of them Mexican, some of them black, some of them Irish, some of them white, some of them from Romania. They raised their arms over a 30-second period that was recorded. And now we have the mayor thinking about further action that needs to be taken. Now we have all the Jewish moguls communicating with each other across the nation to make sure that Sneeko and everybody else are banned inside of their network. And the expectation, I guess, is that this is just the way it's supposed to be. Now, I would hate that obviously be the continuation, that we continually keep getting these kinds of instances. And no, I'm not surprised at all. There's an ounce of me being surprised. What I'm making the harsh realization of, and like I say all the time, is it is very clear to me that conservatives need literally punched in the mouth before they get up and do anything at all. Apparently, they need mugged by reality physically. They need it to happen to them personally before they decide to do anything. And I just sit here and I'm almost kind of envious that I wish the whites had the same kind of, I wish white Christians had the same kind of in-group, locked arm defense of themselves, like clearly the Jews do, and people of the Jewish faith, and just in general. Like I said before, I think there is an element of like, maybe that is the racial weakness of white people, is this the inability to maintain unity, the inability, like Rome fell, America's about to fall. Is that what we do? Is that we create great things and then give it over to people who don't deserve it? Is that is that like our flaw? Who am I? Just a pissed off white guy in the middle of Ohio. Just a pissed off white guy wondering, when is anything going to be different? Wondering what piece of evidence, like what video, what thing could I like find? Like, like what could I put in front of somebody's face that they would go, oh no, like maybe we should like not just sit here idly by. And there are portions of it that's just escapism. And I was thinking about that too. We talk about how a lot of, like in the conservative movement at large, they pushed a lot of these people, they're the conservatives pushing their children not to go to university, go to pursue the trades. There's still a need for the trades, most certainly. And I have a bit more of a nuanced argument on that, but it was escapism. And you get this kind of escapism in a sense with the evangelical crowd. And what you get from a lot of them, once they start to hit the cognitive dissonance and you're talking about issue after issue after issue, you're talking about the, what's the word? We're talking about just white identity in America, Christianity, Christian nationalism, Israel. And then people just go, well, world's ending anyways. What are you going to do about it? I mean, like, to me, I don't understand that mentality. I don't get it. And it is a very strong, it is a boomer waffen mentality. It is like to them, that's their truth. To boomers, that like, they don't have, now some of them do. I'm speaking generally though. To boomers, like their religion is just, can we all just get along? Like that's, if you were to be extremely concise and very reductive. To boomers, that is their religion. Can we all just get along? And when that fails and there's seemingly no answer to that, it was all screwed up anyways. Well, God wins in the end, so what are you going to do about it now? And it's such a dismissal. It's such a dismissal of the future and of their own children, mind you. And I vehemently reject that mindset. I vehemently reject the mindset of, well, everything's bad, guess I should do nothing. Vehemently reject that. I don't know. I honestly wish I knew where that origin of that came from and how so many of these people kind of developed it and it became so widespread. But like, you look back on history and it's like, what other group of people ever thought that? Yeah, our revolutionary fathers, right? Our founding fathers, they're going, now granted, some of them were loyalists. They wanted to be left alone. But there was still a huge plurality of a bunch of men who were like, we can't. I'm sorry, we can't. Like this is worth sacrificing house, home, and everything beyond. This is worth taking a stand for this. What could be more great than taking a stand against tyrannies in such a form, such a fashion? But that energy is gone. You could take the nearest 100 men next to you within your, the nearest 10 square miles of you, combine them all, and you still wouldn't get a man who was a fraction worth of a penny of what George Washington was. And it's not even just like, men are becoming physically, like we can all see that, right? We can see that in terms of men when you see like how men are getting like weaker or more like dysgenic. And it's not even to say like just men are being like fat and ugly and all that, which a lot of them are. But you're seeing a lot of them like also like having these weird body shapes because the food's poison. But I wouldn't even say that's the worst part. It's the fact that like it's the poisoning of the mind, the removing of the soul, and becoming just like this full blown, like, hate to use some of the left's language, but like consumers. And only in that sense of like, these people are just being built to consume. They do nothing. And then you see the way a lot of people's lives are wrapped up. And I mean, like, they can barely manage an 8-hour shift. You know, just getting up for it and coming back home from it. They're beat, they're cooked, can't spend time with their kids. You know, they got to watch the next Netflix show, and slavery is a choice. Slavery as a choice. And I think more than anything, the looks maxing is a huge element of it. But my message to you guys has been from the beginning, and will continue to be, for one, get in the effing gym. But two, you need to be studied up. I am but one person, and I like to think I do a really good job of breaking things down and giving an opinion. But at the same time, I encourage everyone here, do as much as you can. Make sure that you can absorb, learn, read, be able to articulate the history, be able to be someone like a Scott Horton or a Nick Fuentes or a insert your favorite pundit, who can just be a stream of consciousness, who when there is a moment, when that moment arrives where something occurs and you need to be the person who rises to the occasion, to be the man that God called you to be the person to protect white identity, whatever it is in that moment, you need to make sure that you are prepared, studied up for it, and you are able to be the articulate individual in that room, who can commandeer the room, who can say, no, you're wrong, and here's why. Be able to articulate yourself. Don't be like the others who start screaming and reeing and falling into these bad traps so they can't defend their positions. Be a machine. Like, you need to be a literal machine. Be a David. Yeah. Ultimately, David would have wanted a bit more from David there. But that's that for that segment. I'm going to cut myself off before I end up spending the entire show talking about it. But I wanted to make sure I definitely did bring up the point with Adam Sosnik and highlighting, did Nick lose his virginity? Totally uncalled for. And completely, in one quip like that, entirely just deflates everything he said. Because, like, if an Indian man was crying, bitching, and moaning because, like, I walked outside and I didn't shine his calf's head and like bow down to it, and he's like screaming at me, like, what the hell does that matter? I ain't an Indian Shiva. I don't worship the Brahim. I'm a Christian. Your values, your rituals, they mean nothing to me. Go practice that black magic elsewhere. So when Adam Sosnik says all that, it's like, okay, but like, I don't believe in any of that. I don't worship at the altar of whatever that is that you do. I would wish you'd come to know Jesus Christ, but don't expect me to bow down to your rituals and shit like that. Like, but again, that's part of the audacity, part of the entitlement. Moving on though to something a bit more substantive you can sink your teeth into. This is JD Vance, and this is JD Vance's, to me, his soft launch of separating himself from the Trump administration to better position himself for 2028. So it's a 3-minute video clip from AF Post here. Go and put it on screen here. Yes, Christ is King. We will see you, Tony. Appreciate you being here, brother. And let's go here. All right. So they're talking about like this element with the Arctic frost. I would have to imagine it extends, quite frankly, to pretty much everything else. Nice to see you in here, Alec Barton, as well. Appreciate you, man. And I don't know if you'd caught it on any of the previous ones, but I do appreciate you sending the support, man. I've been seeing it and trying to reply to your messages on the Buy Me a Coffee. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate you, brother. And same to the other people who have done it as well. I've had a few other people who have sent support on buymeacoffee.com, and I appreciate that greatly, especially for anybody who doesn't like giving YouTube money. It's a great avenue for that. But thank you. I appreciate that. And But here's the video clip. I'll go ahead and play it without talking anymore.
Last question, Arctic frost. It is getting bigger, and I talked to sources this morning. It's about to explode. And things that we thought were long lost and gone, I want to be a little cryptic, are not lost.
That's right.
And they're not gone.
That's right. Yeah, I want to be a little cryptic too, because I know that we're it's still in the early stages of this investigation. But look, Sean, I think it's one of the great scandals in American history. I think this is definitionally the Biden administration, the deep state, using the apparatus of justice to go after their political opponents. And I also think it raises a very critical issue, and something that I'd encourage my Senate friends on the Republican side to wake up about, because eventually you're going to see prosecutions, not just Arctic frost related, but on a whole host of other issues. Eventually, we need certain subpoenas that have to be issued by a court. Eventually, you need local prosecutors, U.S. attorneys, to go after some of these people in a court of law. If you can't get a U.S. attorney appointed because the Democrat won't give you a blue slip, or you can't get a judge confirmed because the Democrats are gumming up the work of the Senate, Republicans have got to open up their perspective a little bit. And again, I say that some of these people are very dear friends of mine, but why do we allow the blue slip process to prevent the president from appointing a U.S. attorney? Why do we let the blue slip process make it impossible for Donald Trump to appoint a federal judge in California? If you want justice, you've got to empower the President of the United States to actually appoint the officers of justice all over the country. The Democrats are stalling that. And we're going to wake up in a couple of years if we don't have more U.S. attorneys approved, if we don't have more judges approved. We're going to wake up in a couple of years and realize that we've done a lot of great work at the Trump administration, but justice is not being meted out as it should be because we don't have the people on the ground. That is a big problem. And I know that that's somewhat unrelated to Arctic frost, but it actually is related to Arctic frost, because you cannot get the justice for the people who are targeted by the Biden administration unless we've got good people, especially in these U.S. attorneys' offices. And that's something, Sean, we got to pay attention to over the next year.
It's sad because the statute of limitations. I make the argument all the time that from the moment he and Melania came down that escalator, they've been out to destroy him and using the very
100%.
heavy arm, deep powers, deep state to do it. And
spying on him, prosecuting him,
horrible.
Investigating
senators, congressmen
who are just aligned with the President of the United States. You're right. Some of this stuff is going to get covered by statute of limitations.
Yeah.
Some of this stuff, Sean, some of this stuff we can and we should prosecute. And I'm just telling you, this is going to be a real problem. And the people who watch your show are going to get really pissed at Senate Republicans, excuse my language, if we don't have the U.S. attorneys on the ground to actually achieve justice. People are going to get angry, and rightfully so.
Going to get angry? Been angry, like raging out, like MAGA's already imploded. You know, he's obviously trailing behind, and I think for very specific reasons, and I do think J.D. Vance is an extremely fine line to walk, especially because he's up between donors and the people. And it's very clear that all of the major donors, especially those who are largely backing the Trump administration, are entirely at odds with the American people. That's where J.D. Vance is right now. And he's kind of, he did not give it a disavowal of Nick, but he did reference the comments. He did talk about, what was the quote? Eat shit was what he said to Nick Fuentes. So I think there's a bit of a song and dance for J.D. Vance, but to me, that was a very clear sign of a bit of a soft launch to go, hey, I'm going to say now that I can see that the people are upset, which is starkly different from when Donald Trump last addressed the people, which was about a week or two ago, when he said something to the effect, I'm paraphrasing here again, where he said something to the effect of, I don't understand why the people are upset. We have the right policies. Saying, no, the people are wrong. We're in the right. Here, Vance is saying, I think the people are right, and they're going to be angry if we don't do what they're asking, which is a little bit of a different. So this is, in my opinion, what he was always going to have to do, which was find a way to pick up and absorb as many of the pieces that was broken from MAGA and the big tent that he could, after what was going to be the predicted failure and is the failure of the Trump administration right now. And failure largely on all of the mandates. You know, all of the, you know, everything people wanted. Immigration largely being the biggest one. And especially because a lot of these deportations, a lot of these issues that are like the economy and the housing and everything else, a lot of it is downstream from the immigration crisis, from the fact that we have about 100 million more people here that we need to have. And all of these things put like downward pressure on things like supply, like in the renters market. They put downward pressure on wages, like all of these things that we don't want to be happening in America that would be a direct improvement, we could have happen by the simple action of the deportations. This will be the big failure of the Trump administration. And I'm going to be honest with you, I don't know if we're going to break 1 million people by the time we get past the 4 years. I think you're going to get a strong slowdown through the midterms, and you got to think too, like it's a lame duck presidency supposedly for Donald Trump. You would think you'd be getting a lot more power wielding than what you're getting for somebody who's got, you know, there's a chance, right? They may pursue him in court after the fact, but regardless, like it's a lame duck presidency. Like you have nothing else. There's no other time you're going to run, right? There's no other. And maybe it is. He's just so victim to the media. Like he is so overtly concerned about what they will say about him that he will refuse to do anything. Or has he been captured from the start? Either way, you're not getting the deportations. The Tenant media thing I covered a little bit. I don't want to cover too much more of that. The Fishbach pushing and proposing the Mamdani tax. But before we get into that one, we're going to revisit a bit of the Christina Pushaw and James Fishbach story that I wanted to cover on Monday, but I didn't get a chance to. This is the fact that Pushaw started attacking James Fishbach because he reportedly refused to drop out and endorse Jay Collins. And so in this race right now for the Florida governor, I'll put it on screen here for you. In the governor race, what you have what was like 6, 7, 8 weeks ago, it was largely uncontested. You have this uncontested governor race where it's just Byron or Apex Shakur, whatever you want to call him, running uncontested. He'd essentially been knighted by the DeSantis campaign. He is a large figure in the Florida politics scene for a hot minute. And now, well, James Fishbach enters the race. James Fishbach comes in. He comes in, very late into the race. And next thing you know, Jay Collins follows in shortly behind him after. So it's kind of the makeup of the race right now. You have two very strong AIPAC receiving pro-Israel pundits in both Jay Collins and Byron Donalds versus James Fishbach. And it was from this, supposedly, that because James Fishbach did not drop out and endorse Jay Collins, this caused Christina Pushaw to attack him. But here's where I think the story is negative. Why is she attacking him, and what's the connection here? Why would she feel personally slighted? Why is she giving a call to James Fishbach? Right? How does she have James Fishbach's number? Why are they even having private conversations at all? So that's what I kind of explored a little bit here. So Pushaw's statement, and again, this is from Monday. I don't know many people actually cover this in depth, but this is Pushaw's statement. This is from, and again, I believe it happened earlier in the week, January 18th. What day is it today? Like the 21st? I don't even know. Now, she says all of this, yada, yada, yada. But here we go down here. This is a woman talking. It's a bunch yapping. She goes, "We spoke frequently, and I offered him advice on his gubernatorial campaign. I was never working for him. I never received any form of compensation, and I never informed the governor of my communications with him." She says they met last year in October after he DM'd her. Now, she goes on to say she disagreed with his campaign rhetoric increasingly over time as it became more extreme. Now, this part just blows me away. "I still consider James Fishbach a friend. We never had any romantic or sexual relationship whatsoever." To which I'm reading through this going, that's kind of a weird thing to just throw out there. Like no one was accusing you of this. Like no one even asked you to make a statement. There wasn't anything kind of crazy going on. And heck, we're already on to new and bigger and better things later in the week. And also too, how do you meet somebody in October last year and you're going to call them a friend? And that's just being dishonest. You can become like acquaintances that quickly, but I wouldn't consider somebody I met like 4 months ago a friend. At least not in the sense that they're referring to here. Then she goes on, she says, last week I had to cut ties with James Fishbach because I learned that he had deceived me, violated my trust, and lied about me to numerous people in media and politics. One matter that he deceived me about pertained to allegations that he behaved inappropriately with minors in his Incubate Debate League. I was recently informed of allegations involving additional minors. She goes on to say he's more likely to go to prison than the governor's mansion. And talking about some FDLE investigation into Fishbach, which I'm sure if there was, we would have heard about it at this point. But what you're finding here is that they had a bunch of communications. Christina Pushaw and James Fishbach were communicating. And I am telling you, I simply don't like that. Now, I get there's an element with the political scene that as a politician, you're talking to everybody. And specifically, I would imagine that he was trying to familiarize himself with her, getting his name out there because she is, a larger figure in the Florida political scene, given with her work of what she did with the DeSantis campaign. However, most people would say Christina Pushaw is the reason why the Ron DeSantis campaign burned to the ground. Some people so much so even think that it was almost intentional, that it was intentionally kind of pushed down. I don't like that. I don't like that they were having personal communications, just in general, because I'm going to be honest. If I was to personally run for something, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it the right way. Like, I'll do like what we had said with Michael, when he was on the show. I'll do my P's and Q's and file the paperwork, but I don't. Like, I'm running because politics is F. Do you think I want to hear or have a conversation with somebody who's been spending 10, 15 years in the region doing it? I'm going to be like, bro, you're probably half the reason why we have the problems. I don't want to have a conversation with you. We're more than likely enemies. And that needs to be more of a thing. This friend-enemy distinction that's like, we're all like coming together is like, no, like half of these people on the other side of the aisle want me and my kind extinct and dead. I don't care about the friendlies or the niceties at all. I'm playing to win. I'm not playing to be liked. I don't get that element of it. But regardless, I want to take you to Fishbach's statement. So Fishbach responds and replies to this. Let me put it up on screen so you guys can see this. He says, my statement on Christina Pushaw's crash out. He says, for the last 2 months, Christina served as an informal advisor to my campaign. We spoke several times a week, compared strategy, and she even traveled to my campaign events. And then he says that it changed on Monday when Lieutenant Governor Jay Collins announced his run for governor. Suddenly, Christina became frustrated with my campaign. On Wednesday night, she called me 28 times in a row until 1:30 in the morning, to which he does provide screenshots of this, which is just insane. Now you can just see down here, incoming call, incoming call, incoming call, incoming call, incoming call. Absolutely insane. But he continues, he says, I told Christina that under no circumstance will I drop out and endorse Jay Collins or another candidate. I am in this race to win and to fight for every single person who calls Florida home. Christina Pushaw's pathetic attack is the latest sign that her campaign to put Florida first is a real threat to the Tallahassee swamp. Florida's next governor will be chosen by moms in Mariana and dads in Miami, truck drivers in Crestview, and U.S. sugar workers in Clewiston. Not by AIPAC, not by corporate donors, and sure as heck, not by Christina Pushaw. That's his statement. But here's where it gets rough. Because I want to play a clip from David Riley, who is one of the hosts from The Backlash, which is a dissonant right podcast. I would encourage people to go listen to it. I think it's really good. Although I disagree kind of a lot with the Rebecca chick on there, to be honest with you. However, she's about as base as you can get in a female body, from what I would understand. Listen to the way James Fishbach describes his relationship with Christina Pushaw. And notice what's different. And he says this too, before this whole thing blew up.
It wasn't just DeSantis. There was like a whole team of people behind him, including a woman, I think her name is Christina Pushaw. What are your thoughts of Christina Pushaw? Does she have any connections or a relationship with your campaign?
She doesn't. You know, I found Christina to be a friend. I had dinner with her a couple months ago and stayed in touch with her. You know, what I would say is that the DeSantis administration, by and large, has been an incredibly successful operation. I think there's always going to be disagreements within the staff about how something is done or why it wasn't done a certain way. But I would judge the governor by what he's done for our state consistently in education, especially during COVID. And then on the Israel question, I certainly would not have met with Netanyahu like Jay Collins did.
It wasn't just...
So not anything insane or anything to like scream and write James Fishbach off about. I don't think that at all. I wouldn't say this is, you would cross him off, and quite anything. I might be making a bit of a mountain out of a molehill. But I don't like the fact that he said she had nothing to do with his campaign. You know, he had dinner with her and they were friends. But the way that they're just like the way the back and forth comes off between them is that it was very clear. Like the fact that he tracks it up until that Monday when it suddenly changed with his campaign when Jay Collins ran is like they were communicating probably a lot more than what he let off, more than that dinner. And it's very obvious for what reason, right? Like they're talking about politics. He's probably trying to actually get information and such. And so for him to say like she doesn't have anything to do with the campaign, I would say like that is a little bit of an omission. He could have at least said at that point, like, you know, I'm getting, you know, I getting indirect advice from her, you know, about how like what to look at in Florida, but didn't say any of that at all. So I'm probably making a bit of a mountain out of a molehill, but this is the kind of like scrutiny that we have to put our people under. And this is just kind of the way it is. And part of the reason is because we've had the wool pulled over our eyes way too many times. And so we are being a bit paranoid of what to cover and look for, but at least being reasonable with that. And I would say, you know, the reasonable element to this is to not immediately write him off and say, oh no, don't listen to this guy because of Christina Pushaw. But it is maybe one, if not maybe the only grain of sand on Fishbach that's kind of going like, okay, that's interesting. Richard Spencer had a bit more like choice words of it as well too. Although I don't really listen to Richard Spencer all that much. Really don't. I just find him boring. Like, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think he's bad by any means. I'm just not a Richard Spencer guy. There's a couple guys like that in this kind of political space that I'm not. And maybe people find me that way, you know, to each their own. But I wanted to make sure I played that element of it just to go to the bad first before we go to some of the good. And so for some of the good that we have, Fishbach had like 3 moments today that I thought were really, really solid. The one is about the Mamdani tax and talking about, you know, out of state relocation into Florida and what he wants to do to prevent that. He also specifically and very explicitly outlines white genocide, which was insane. He did that with Ella Moulding. And then we're going to play a clip that's gone since viral of him cooking Max Nordau because all these Jews are constantly attacking him for his finances in his financial structure for his campaign, saying he's not a serious candidate. And because he doesn't have millions of dollars backing him and behind him, that just proves that like he's not a serious candidate. And it's like, I thought we voted with pieces of paper, you know, like, and wouldn't that be something too? A guy who like raised $1,000 beats out a 45 million war chest hawk and like a guy who's received like $2.7 million in other small donations. Like that'd be crazy. That would be awesome. It would almost be kind of like how the system is supposed to work. But here's the first one. And this is Fishbach proposing the Mamdani tax. If it will work.
Florida is full. We are not a refugee camp for New Yorkers to flee from their problems. That's your mess. Clean it up. I am proud to announce here today exclusively on PBD that I will pass the Mamdani tax, $50,000 property transaction tax for any out-of-state individual who wants to buy real estate, single-family real estate here in Florida. It's time we put Florida first. We are full. We took in 800,000 new residents after COVID in just 5 short years. Crazy idea. Florida needs to put the people who made Florida, Florida back at the front of the line. That's what I'm running to do. If you want more New Yorkers, Byron Donalds is your guy. After all, he was born and raised in New York, and within the span of 3 years moving here, he got himself arrested twice. Florida is full.
So I could hear arguments on both sides of this, to be honest. Because it is like you're preventing, you know, just out-of-state residents from coming into Florida, but at the same time, he's naming it the Mamdani tax with the specific idea. And Florida is like this. So Florida actually gets a lot of relocation from Ohio. A lot of people who live in Ohio actually move to Florida. I think it's like that and South Carolina are the top two destinations for people from Ohio. They end up living there and retiring. But the Mamdani tax is ultimately like this idea of like coming from New York. And maybe that's what it should be. Maybe it should be like specific, like California and New York residents and like get all the left-wing states. Maybe I wouldn't maybe make it universal. But I was curious about that. And, these kind of propositions all kind of go in line with like where he's been, which is like very, big numbers, 100%, syntax, things like that. So all of the rhetoric is there. Everything is there. But it was the next one that I liked the most between all three of these we're about to watch through. And this is with Ella Maulding, who again is what I guess you could call her a great bet. She wears the America First hat. Although what's the word? I don't know too much about her, to be fair, so I don't know if she even considers herself a great bet. I would imagine she does, though.
I saw you made a post the other day advocating against white genocide, which is something we are like basically not allowed to talk about.
Somebody said
We've
he
been
was
conditioned to, avoid speaking about anti-white racism or using words like white genocide. How do we combat natives from being replaced in their own state and in America in general?
The biggest policy right off the bat is immigration. We've been told as Republicans that illegal immigration is bad, but we should still let in legal immigrants. As the kids say, cap. We're gonna stop all of that. We want to push for a complete immigration moratorium. We want to stop all immigrants from coming here, because to tell you the truth, the immigrants who are coming here, they're not adding to our system. The immigrants who came to Ellis Island actually came here, sought to assimilate, sought to become part of the fabric of our unequivocal Christian nation. They didn't come here as the immigrants do today to take food stamps, Obama phone, all sorts of welfare, and then say that we are on stolen land, that we need to give them reparations. That's exactly what's happening in places like Minneapolis. That's exactly what is happening. And so I think we have to be very honest about all Republicans are on the same page. We need to stop illegal immigration, but we have to stop legal immigration as well. An invasion is an invasion, whether it's illegal or legal. The Afghan refugee who shot 2 National Guardsmen the night before Thanksgiving last year, he was here legally. In fact, actually, Byron Donalds voted yes on the Allies bill that was later signed by Joe Biden to lower the vetting requirements to allow that sick Afghan sicko into our country and to shoot those 2 members of the National Guard. The 9/11 hijackers were here legally. The Springfield Haitians were here legally. So much of what is happening right now are actually legal immigrants, and they're refusing to assimilate the Somalis in Minneapolis.
You're right. He's completely right. And that is what the majority of the MAGA base wants. I don't want to hear any more about this differentiation between legal and illegal immigration. We want all of it gone. And we want you guys to reverse course. We want you to actually remigration. We want you guys to start sending them back by the boatload. And I would even say more than a boatload. I would say, by the bus load, by whatever the massive load is, pause. Run these people out. And again, this is the line. And I don't think that there's any kind of waffling on this that's going to ever be allowed. Like this is, I think, where what's the word? The straw that breaks the camel's back is this line. And it is the fact that people are going to start coming out and away from their previously kind of like MAGA principles of like, well, I'm not racist and whatnot, because they're going to continually, and it's encroaching on very specific values that people will begin to take their own side. Unfortunately, because it's getting worse and worse and worse, which I wouldn't want to have to happen. But I'm telling you, I like what I'm hearing from Fishbach, and just put it on screen one more, because I think he just mentioned white genocide one more time.
In Minnesota or here legally. And so if we're going to get serious about stopping the Great Replacement, and I'm probably the only real Republican who's running for office who's actually willing to say those words,
right,
that the Great Replacement is real, and then I'm running for Florida governor to stop it, that white genocide is real, and I'm running for Florida governor to stop it, that we have to get serious about that, and I will as governor.
So, I love it. I love it. It's a serious issue. It needs to be treated with the serious nature that it is, and we're not going to be told otherwise. We're not going to be told, not to play identity politics. I'm not going to hear Tucker Carlson bitch and moan. None of it. This is the issue. White America. white America has the right to exist. Like, if Israel has the right to exist, white America has the right to exist. And we're going to start stealing some of your language. We'll start using your same playbook. It's not about immigration. To them, it's about the elimination of white people and whiteness. Well, that actually quite literally is. But that needs to be a bit of the play as well too. Using some of this charged language, using some of their own tactics against them, and just quite frankly putting it back in the faces of these people. Now, this third one here from Fishbach is with Max Nordau on a Spaces that occurred on X, and I believe this is from Buckley Carlson. That's the one who quoted it, but who was it with? I'm trying to remember who the hosts were. I can't remember. I don't know who any of these people are in this, just besides Fishbach, but it's a group of kind of, some ex-pundits, only a 40-second clip. But it's Fishbach responding to Max Nordau, who had been pressing him continually over his finances. And one of the elements on his finances was his car. And so this is that clip here.
Fishbach, listen, you're the one who says that Byron has a dark vision.
Byron does have a dark vision. He does have a dark vision. He's a disgrace. He came from the ghetto. I want to send him back to the ghetto. And you can print that if you want. I don't care what you say, Max. You're a stupid, feckless Republican who's trying to tone police us. I and the rest of us are trying to save our country. And you're worried about me calling a black man Byron? Go join the Democrat Party, Max. Seriously.
Yeah, so your car wasn't repossessed. It was seized by U.S. Marshals. Whose car are you driving right now? And
Max,
whose name is the title?
Max, I'm driving your mom's car right now. You want to talk to her?
I love this. I love
also,
this show.
So that's hilarious. I thought that was funny. It's funny that Hitler's a speaker, like right here, just floating at the bottom. I like that. I like that energy. That felt real. That response felt real. Now, I don't know if I could tell you what's real anymore, given the generation of AI and, quite frankly, everything else going on. But that felt, at least to me, it felt a bit more organic than what I guess I'm kind of used to hearing. And I like that. And I like the fire in it too. And that is how you need to talk to these people. This whole playing the game with them, and like, just because somebody's, whinging and screaming, and they're yelling at, like, the kind of the pearl clutching that we're used to. I don't owe you an equal response of like, oh no, like, yeah, let me make sure like you're good. Don't care. Quite frankly, don't care. Because it's the same way when a schizophrenic person is having a breakdown. You don't comfort them by telling them like, no, they're not going to get you, I swear. And you also don't help charge it up with them too, by screaming at them. A lot of the time, you're just basically told to kind of walk away because they're literally insane. You don't want to get hurt. In the same way, I think a lot of these people are, got to just start treating them like the schizos they are. Like, I'm not going to give an ounce of credibility to somebody who's coming off like a whinging lunatic. And that goes for people like Mark Levin, Josh Hammer, and it needs to extend to others as well too. And we need to not wait for Mark Levin to have a complete crash out, not wait for Josh Hammer to quite literally call for violence against Tucker Carlson. You need to be able to recognize these things well in advance because the signs were very obviously there. So no more of this. Don't be baited, right? Like, don't be baited into the conversation by like a moral concern or this kind of moralizing over these things. Because if their morality is rooted in anything beyond Christianity, what does it matter? My value sets, what I believe in is good and evil, is dictated by God, by the values that come from Christendom. It's not dictated by man-made artificial values that we decided upon and we change every 50 years because a different group of people is being hurt or harmed. No. But I did like that from Fishbach. I want to make sure I played that. Mike Huckabee, this is one of these other elements with Mike Huckabee. And he gave a response to what we had went over on Monday, which was the statement from the churches, the patriarchs and the heads of the churches there in Jerusalem, the Christian churches in Jerusalem. And this was Mike Huckabee's response to that. So I'll go ahead and put that up here. He could not respond to it. But this is a quote tweet from Father Calvin Robinson, who has been notoriously bawling, and especially in the JQ. He says, in which Mike Huckabee lectures the church on matters of faith and theology, I kid you not. Zionist Mike Huckabee attempts to correct the leaders of every, I always say it wrong, apostolic church in Jerusalem because they dared to smash his idol. The audacity of this politician, he cannot be rebuked. And this is like this long, now I'm not going to read this to you at all, like the latter half, because you don't need to. But what you have here is that I do not feel any sect of the Christian faith should claim exclusivity in speaking for Christians worldwide, or assume there's only one viewpoint regarding faith in the Holy Land. Personally, I'm part of a global and growing evangelical tradition that believes and it's just a bunch of nonsense, dude. So, of course, Mike Huckabee was going to come out here. It was expected that Mike Huckabee was going to give this statement. They're going to defend Christian Zionism despite, you could have the Pope come together. You could have the head of the Orthodox Church. You could have the Union of Baptists come together. They will not stop. Christian Zionism to them is their religion. It is a false, forgive me, it is a false one, but it's theirs. And there's no stopping that. Just to point a bit of attention to that too. We have videos from the World Economic Forum. This is another element too, and this is a little bit of a sidebar away from more of this. But just again, I want to talk about this every single day because it is, I'm telling you, at least for the past month, the last 30 days, I have got on here, and when I am outlining or when I'm putting show prep together and I'm looking at news stories and articles and I'm deciding like what's probably the most important thing to talk about or most relevant to the day, I'm telling you, there's a Jewish Congress happening in every corner. It's 6 a.m. somewhere. Like I'm telling you, even right now, there's probably some kind of, it'll be the organized Jewish voices of, urethra or some random shit. Like it's happening all the time. It's every day they're having these conferences. Every day a rabbi is talking to some Jewish woman about what they need to censor and the rise of anti-Semitism. And the one that was going viral today is from the World Economic Forum, and I can't remember what the rabbi's name is, but the language they're using in this discussion, and the clip that went viral is about 1.5 minutes long, they're talking about how the Europeans are insecure and they're like the old inhabitants of Europe. And they use this a few different times where they're saying old inhabitants of Europe, as if there's new inhabitants of Europe. And it's more of this obviously this charged language that continues and pushes for more of this hatred of everything that is European. And it's no wonder that they're pushing more so of that. But it's just to let you know, like, while we're here in America debating, like, for a lot of people in MAGA, debating on how clutched should their pearls be on the Clubacaust, in Europe at the World Economic Forum, they have already moved past and established that Europe is no longer for Europeans and it's for quite literally everybody, and they are annihilating the identity of that place. So remind yourself and remember like where we are. Do not allow these moments to skate you by. You must remember what their mission is and what their goals are and their objective. And Joel Berry said it himself. How great would it be that in 100 years, not a white person be left in America? And that's what they want. They post pictures of their delusions, their dreams, their fantasies of this, not even multicultural society, but a society that is interbred to such a degree that has forsaken its own ethnic roots, that everybody looks the same, some caramel colored copy with these weird gray and green eyes. That's what Joel Berry wants. Joel Berry reads the story in the Tower of Babel from the Bible, and he goes, I want more of that. And quite frankly, probably just like how the rest of the Jews acted and behaved, he saw what God did to the Tower of Babel and he got mad and said no. Quite frankly, he, in Joel Berry's opinion, and I would imagine many others, they think that God was wrong. You'll find this is a common theme. It's people, man. It's people, man. And it's not to say, and what can't be missed in it is it's not we're here to reach the full end of what enemies are. Obviously, we would want to circumvent things that would put anybody at risk. But at a certain point, it has to become excruciatingly obvious that if lines are being drawn and it feels like we are increasingly losing every last avenue and channel that can be explored, whether it's through the courts or whether it's through supposedly the most, MAGA and for the people candidate that we've seen in American history. And to what end, if all of these fail, you have to be realistic about what these kind of energies will bring. And I think the way that it looks right now is it feels like a lot of people may just give up. I don't want to see that, and I don't want people to give up. But it does feel like that would track the general nature of how we got here in the first place, which is just lack of conviction, lack of being vigilant, just an overall kind of, abdication of duties and responsibilities. I want that to be the case, but I fear that would be the direction that it goes, the more that it feels that these channels are given up. And the reason why I highlight this is because, to me, and this is going to go at the people who are like in the Candace Owens circle, when I see like, Diligent Dennison and Project Constitution and Chris Manahan and Ian Carroll, and I could go down the line, all of these people, when, I'm still waiting for someone to explain the time travel to me. But you see some of these replies and these responses. And for Fishbach specifically, I caught this from Diligent Denizen. People are talking about how there's this connection to Bill Ackman from Diligent Denizen. Or not Diligent. James Fishbach is connected to Bill Ackman, or had prior connections to Bill Ackman. Diligent Denizen replies to some random post of Fishbach that was like, they're like, well, I'm really glad this, Fishbach was saying this. And it was one of the clips that came from the Patrick Bet David because he was on PBD earlier today. But what Diligent Denizen says in response, which is like, they're saying, well, hold on. This person was like, well, like, who am I going to vote for? I mean, who would I vote for then? Like, if you're saying like even Fishbach is bad, well, they reply, well, I think I'm not going to vote. I think you need to, I think nobody should vote. The system's too broken. And you think about the Florida race there, which is not anything close to the makeup of what the race is looking like in the electoral or at the nationwide race. And you have between James Fishbach and Byron Donalds, I think, a much clearer and much more obvious change of direction or change of helm or expectation of what those governorships would look like. And given what I understand and what most people know about Project Esther and its kind of concerted effort to ensure this kind of divisive and low trust between anti-Israel factions, it begins to become clear to me that I find a lot of these people to be just purely in the realm of demoralizing. Now, I am an accelerationist, don't get me wrong. But when it comes to a race like that is exceptionally different, that we really don't, like I just went through Christina Pushaw, that there's really nothing that's too sticky on Fishbach. It feels like it's almost demoralizing to tell people based off of this one slight connection that he had, this one time he had met Bill Ackman, to write him off completely and don't vote at all, when on the other side of that is Byron Donalds with the $45 million war chest and an uncontested primary from Miriam Adelson, the same Adelson family that gave Jonathan Pollard, an Israeli spy, a hero's welcome when he landed after he got out of prison. The guy who was unapologetic about what he did against America for Israel. So there's elements to me that I do think that perhaps there is a bit of a demoralization campaign, and part of it's being done by these people who supposedly are truth seekers. Now, I'll completely get that he's fishy, but you have a very clear and obvious, Section 8, Byron Donalds, Israeli shilling clear. At the very least, you would say, what do you have to lose by voting for Fishbach? If the idea is that the system's corrupt and you're going to be ruled by Jews, well, would you not at least take the slight chance to just vote for Fishbach in the hope that something would be a little bit different? Again, the only races I would actually put on that level would be the Casey race against Surveillant, which I think is a bit more clear cut than even the Fishbach one, and the Fishbach and Byron Donalds one. But I mean, I get it. I would still say I find the cadence and the elite posturing of Fishbach to be sketchy. I just do. But when you think about it in terms in the context of that race, it's like, what do the people of Florida have to lose? You're going to go from, you're already from DeSantis, and you know how he feels about it. You know, he's hiking to Israel every 3 months in his like 9-inch heels. Byron Donalds is obviously a token pro-Israel candidate. What do you have to lose? At least hope, right? Because otherwise it might honestly be a wash, and you might get Byron Donalds. Then you will get more of the corruption that you don't want. And that kind of, to me, is like, even as an accelerationist, I can look at the individual value that some of these elections and the votes may hold in terms of what they can represent. However, I think the closer that we have gotten to 2028, and again, crazy stuff can happen, but I'm waiting. Where is that person, right? Where is this individual who's going to just come out of nowhere and be a potential 2028 frontrunner for a presidential election? That to me is a whole different question. And when you're looking between, J.D. Vance and Gavin Newsom, I think that's an entirely different context of a question to ask and framing of, how much does your vote actually matter here on that element compared to Casey versus Vivek and compared to Fishbach versus Donalds. Which, to be fair, there's more people in these races. We're talking maybe more so from like the primary side of the aisle. But I don't know. I just wanted to put that out there. I do think there's elements of this, and I find it to be Black Santas. It's funny. To be a demoralization campaign. And specifically people like Diligent Denizen and Ian Carroll and others like that. Forgive me, I got a call for some reason from somebody important. I don't know why they'd be doing that. But to me, I find that to be relevant, I should say. And one of the final things I'll play out is this is a community submission. This comes from Mr. House AI as well too, and power to House, because he was pumping this stuff in the community earlier today. And tinfoil hat, by the way, if you want to find any of these things, or if you want to send anything to me in hopes that like I read it or talk about it on the show, yeah, my side call. Send it either in the clip submissions on the Discord or send it in the tinfoilhat.com section of the Discord channel. And those are the two ones I typically pull from. The people are putting stuff in there. And largely it's just been people like House and a few others. There's been a couple others, but largely House. Yeah, I got the call. You know what's funny is the amount of people who like, because I made that video about Nick Fuentes and Tim Pool, the best moments from that interview, was like, now I'm a federal asset. It's like, really, dude? I'm a federal asset, and the best they could give me was two shit lights in the back and a camera that didn't even come with a tripod, so it shakes every 3 seconds. Like, give me an effing break, dude. like if anything, like I'm getting more and more concerned by the day that I might get a knock at my door that I was never expecting, and you guys never hear from me again. That's what I get more and more concerned by the day about. But that is a different story. But this was this immigration operation in Ohio. And so House had sent this to me, and it pissed me off. I was so pissed off when I had seen this from when House had sent it in. And it is just some of the most insane stuff that you will see. And I made a post about this one actually before I went live, but it is specifically talking about there's essentially a woman who's making money off of coordinating and getting people's numbers in and getting all these immigrants in, all these illegals she's working with. She's fudging numbers, getting them through the process between the Social Security accounts, getting them set up for driver's licenses, getting them set up, and she's making cuts off of it. And so she says, and it was all exclusively in this bombshell in this video. So I'll take you to the video here. I'll just read you a quote from the article before we watch this video. The article goes, quote, Patricia Golder, that's who it is. Golder says she takes a portion of the pay given to the Mauritian migrants in exchange for helping them navigate the system. And she claims she can bribe judges to rule in the migrants' favor. The footage also suggests that many of the migrants involved neither embrace nor intend to adopt core American values, even as they access public resources designed to protect legitimate asylum seekers. And so she talks not only on the bribe element about how she goes to, and she frequently visits places where judges are known to go, and talks about how she will negotiate with them while they're drinking at the bar. And she also goes into detail talking about how with the migrants that she threatens to call the ICE on them and the police on them if they blow up her operation. But that her typical rate is that no matter what the hourly rate is of the person, whether it's $18 an hour at Walmart or $20 an hour from, whatever job, that she makes her cut back. And typically it's $4 for every hour. So they're making $18 an hour. She's getting $4 every hour. So she's making these cuts. So it's a story that's happening in Ohio with Ohio immigration lawyers. I tagged the FBI earlier and I listed every name of the judge, of all the judges that are there, because it's one or multiple, and some of the language used by her insinuates that it's definitely multiple that she's approached on this. And so I'm just going to take you directly to the footage that was on YouTube, which, forgive me, the article's here first. You go to the video. Lord have mercy.
Here then, in the first place.
Lord have mercy. All right, put it on screen. This is brought to you by Larry with Larry O'Connor, who's got about 660,000 subscribers on YouTube, which is kind of wild that this only has 22,000 views after being a bit of a viral story here. But here's a portion of this conversation that was recorded undercover.
The where?
The border.
The border.
Let's think about it.
But that's nowhere near the border.
They come through Panama Canal.
They come underground.
They come through Panama Canal and they walk under the ground.
Coyotes.
And come down.
Coyotes.
And then when they come, they cross that water. That's where they make the chain link.
Coyotes.
Human being bodies hold each other and come across water.
Gotcha.
Many people died. Many people lived.
How much did it cost to get here?
Well, some pay over $5,000 because you have to pay the mystic and then carry across the border.
So how come 3,000 folks come in and then where'd they go?
They are Mulberry.
They're all Mulberry only holds like what? How many people?
What about Post? Mulberry Post.
Okay. What's Post?
Post is right there in the post office there. So in front of
Oh, it's another building they're in?
Yeah,
okay.
Like,
Could they squeeze in that many in 2 apartment complex?
It's crazy.
I'm telling you.
The
I
more
would
you
love
know.
to see maybe.
A lot.
How can they afford to pay the rent?
Well, if one working, this is how they live. If one in this house working, like 9, 10 of them in this apartment.
Yeah.
And this one.
So just wanted to give you a bit of an opener. Luckily, the article actually breaks this up for us, and so I'm going to put the article back up. Won't blind you guys a little bit. But this is it. Bombshell footage claims judges can be bought with bribes in Ohio immigration courts. And so it's a series of all of these different admissions from her. And so the article breaks it up here too. So she talks about how she helps them get their papers in the initial right. He knows about Mulberry Street. I try to work with them the best I can. Then he goes down here, getting them some work. That's what I'm going to do. And the question is, do they have papers or not? Some of them have papers, some don't. Now she goes into detail about how they know that they're working with illegals. She says, you got to work under the radar. They don't have paperwork, she admits. The reporter says, I thought they were illegal. She laughs and replies, no. So then we get over here talking about how they get here through the Panama Canal, how much it was to pay a coyote. This is here where she threatens them. If you call lies, I'm shipping your ass back to Africa, Golder says. So she's threatening them. She comes in here. The man explained how he left Africa, talking about the pathway that he took coming through at Tijuana. But let's go down here to the judges. And so she talks about, this isn't the judges yet. This is talking about how she filed for the paperwork. Now, this is kind of a bit important and shows you a bit of the rot here. But she's talking about how you can fill it out with a specific number here. And it's the work permit. The work permit, it's like the A6 numbers, which I'm assuming comes from an immigration form or as a work permit form. Regardless, it's like the documents identify themselves. It's like the documents corroborate themselves, even though none of them are legitimate. That's what she explains here. She uses like the work permit for the Social Security, then the Social Security card, and they get the driver's license, and they all kind of work, and they go back and forth with each other. And she also goes on to say, you can take the same number from the Social Security card, and when they get the Social Security, then you can go ahead and get the ID. She's done a lot of them, and even talks about how if it's flagged in application, and they send it back to her, she'll circumvent the system by going and contacting a different office, even when the applicants are using the same identity and security number, which is insane. Insane. Thank you very much for the super chat. I appreciate that. Is that I'm assuming that's Canadian, I think. I don't know what those, I would have to be Canadian, right? That's what the CA stands for. Appreciate you. Bishop says, hey, brother, I like what you're doing. Keep going, keep going. Here's some shekels. And I appreciate that very much. Thank you. And good luck to you up in Canada. Hey, you can keep Lauren Southern. Wait, is it Southern? I think she's Canadian. Pretty sure. But here's the part that I want to play. Not the veterans aspect, but the judges. And so this starts right off the rip talking about the judges.
If I can get through to the judge. You know, the only person you want that is the judge.
Wait, say that again.
If I can get through the judge, it's okay. Sometimes some people
So they'll pay you.
Some places drink some big places where you don't even drink alcohol, but you're going to some big places.
Right.
The big boys sit down and drink. You visit those places.
Right.
Make a conversation with him.
Yeah.
You see. Yeah, this boy there and that day. You work that day? You say yeah. You say okay. $50,000 to send everybody to see all these names.
Yeah.
I have them in my book. Okay? I go to the bar like everybody should. Spot the judge. I say, you work on this date? You like, let me see my calendar. You go in his phone. Yeah? What's your problem? I said, I got all these boys, man. All right. Want to let them back here? Because they work for me. All right,
So this is what she does. She negotiates with these individuals. She sets them up with these judges to get them free passes to help push their customs work and get them through the immigration courts. And it is so disturbing and so unfortunate. And she's making money off of it. This is her business. This is what this woman does. Every single one of those judges that's partaking in this, there needs to be an investigation immediately. These people need to be, those judges, for one, need to be disbarred. That's a given. But they need to be thrown in prison, and they need to be treated as traitors. Quite honestly, if you, as a judge, violate your oath to office as a judge, like you should suffer the most severe penalty allowed in American law. It is like no greater kind of dishonor or like disrespect that you could give as a judge than essentially by violating your own office. Now, granted, we've come to understand many judges are like this, but this is aggressive. And I don't even understand why she's bragging about it. And maybe there's an element to this which goes in the same vein of like Don Lemon and the lack of justice that we've gotten from these people as well too, is their confidence is extremely high that nothing's going to happen to them. And why would it not be? We're not getting any arrest. I mean, it's insane to me that I woke up and Don Lemon's not been arrested or charged. It's insane to me that I woke up and that far left agitator lady wasn't charged. Tim Walz is still running just fine. Everybody, all of these floating out, everybody that Trump has said, Ilhan Omar, the criminal referral from Ana Paulina Luna. Anything happened with that? Nope. But we're sure we're going to get on the FACE Act, and we're going to attach the KKK Act, and we're going to go see the full extent of the law. It couldn't be more of a joke. They couldn't make it more of a sad joke if they tried. And like I said earlier, with the reaction of the red pill, the Clubacaust, you have, the world needs to bend over backwards for all the Jews, most protected group in all of America. But public school there in Kansas, telling kids Trump can't be the role model, which I would agree with that. But Charlie Kirk and Jesus can't be role models, being banned. And on top of that, the teachers are, in that story too, from the Kansas school, the teachers are telling the students not to tell their parents. None of the problems have been fixed. We are still living in the same, if not worse, level of degeneracy that we were dealing with in 2016. The only thing that has actually qualitatively changed since 2016, 10 years ago, 10 years of fighting in the culture war, the only thing that's changed is we are now allowed a more stronger, freer platform. And even that, I found out this morning, I'm being deboosted in. I'm being suppressed in. All because I have a flag. I have a flag of, my flag was hate and harassment for anti-Semitic conspiracies. So, but no, everybody, let's go listen to John Goyle. Keep voting for Republicans. There's nothing more base that you can do. Forgive me, I can't even see from this far away. I have such bad eyes. Jim says, if the day ever came that the right ever became what they're accused of being, it would be the right that should get the worst. It would be the right that should get the worst. Get it the worst. Can't fault the enemy as much as you can the traitor, and that's true. I mean, when you see that kind of language, right? You have people talk all the time. Like if you're in a room with Benedict Arnold and like insert two other villains or whatever, people say Benedict Arnold gets the bullet twice. Traitors are more morally reprehensible than villains who told you from the front. Villains who stared at who chest to chest are telling you that they are oppositional to you, 100 million times more respectable and even honorable, quite frankly, than someone standing alongside of you, waiting for the first time that they can stab you. The moment that you take a step in front of them, they'll cut you. And Willem Forge says, "What is the Clubacaust?" The Clubacaust is the Jewish overreaction to a Mexican, an Irish guy. Well, I guess Nico's not Mexican. I don't even know what Nico is. It was just a mixed reaction to a bunch of guys raising their arms in a club for 30 seconds. That's what the Clubacaust is. Yeah. The Clubacaust is the dying gasp of what I would consider the media child of this kind of organizational power system. I don't know if we're going to get any more of these costs, because I think for most of these people, they have come out on the other side looking much, much worse. And that includes like everybody who was involved in the Tucker cost. Even Megyn Kelly came out on the other side of it at the end of it after Ben Shapiro pushed her so far. Yeah, you weren't there? It was at least 6 million. It was at least 6 million. That broadly wraps up where I was at with what I wanted to cover today. I've actually, and probably as you guys have noticed, I've actually been spending a lot more time looking at like thumbnail creation and some more things like on the technical side on YouTube. And specifically, like I was trying to find ways to get around, because if I'm being suppressed and censored on X, like Lord knows like how that's like what's going on with the YouTube controls. And so I've been thinking of ways that I can like rise above and like break through some of that. And some of that is like stepping my thumbnail game up to the level of Mr. Beast. And so it's undeniable. And so like, that's what I've been trying to look at. Different AI tools I can use to help with that too. And like the editing. But no other announcements beyond that. Make sure you obviously subscribe, smash the like button if you haven't already. That helps it a lot. Everything's going to Spotify and Apple Podcasts as it typically does, although there kind of is a bit of a delay because I have to get it off of YouTube. Sometimes I have to wait 12 to 24 hours to pull it off. One of the episodes, I think episode 134, won't be able to be on Spotify. It should be able to be on Apple Podcasts, and that is because that one scene from the what was that movie that there's a movie that one of you guys asked me to play. I think it was Tix Bomber asked me to play, and it's because there's audio from that movie in there. I couldn't post it to Spotify. Make sure you follow NAV @_creators. Although hopefully we're going to get a lot more debates going on there. I would imagine tomorrow you'll see a bit more of that fleshed out on the circuit between myself and Zeb as we continue looking at some more of this kind of the ongoings of the political digital circuit, the digital media empire, and everything that goes on with that. I feel like I'm literally forgetting something, and that's why I'm hesitating to give the calls. Yes, the Sicario clip. Thank you. I could not think of what it was. What was I going to say? I was retard maxing too much earlier today. Oh, that's right. That's right. Corey Muller was on Mainstream Dissident's show, and it was dropped. I have it right here. It's on my top thing. It was dropped a few hours ago. It was dropped 4 hours ago. Make sure you go and watch it. Mainstream Dissident is a friend here at the channel. Mainstream Dissident being a lot more outspoken national socialist than I believe many others. At least that's my understanding. I think he is a lot more like, to the T that. Now let him speak for himself. I could be wrong about that, but that's from my understanding. But go check that out. Corey Mahler is somebody who is a titan in this space in the dissident right, especially when it comes to Christian nationalism, and especially when it comes to things like feminism, the JQ, etc., all of that. But make sure you go watch it. I'm sure it's really good content. That's what it was. I was in contact with Antelope Hill earlier today. Should be receiving some of the works that we were talking about just a few weeks ago, or a week or two ago, very soon. And when that starts, we'll be looking to plan and book an interview with some of the authors who are familiar with the content, whether it's direct authors or people who are very familiar with the books and the works. The collaborations will be coming back to Offensively Accurate. I know I kind of avoided that for a hot minute just because doing the setup, man, it's just such a hassle. It's so much easier when it's by myself and I can just rant and yell. But the collaborations are coming back. I should have been doing that a lot more, to be honest with you. I will also reach out to Beardson to see if I can get Beardson on here. I might also reach out to Pine Sap and Tyler Russell too. I might just lock in and only let Groypers come on here. We'll just lock it down. We're like The View. Like, listen, dude, Groypers only. You're not a Groyper. You have to swear fealty. You have to say, I swear loyalty to Nick Fuentes. I wouldn't do, maybe we'll do that. But I do think I'm going to start locking it in and closing it out some. I think I've been far too charitable with a lot of people in this space. I've held my tongue to a certain degree for a lot of things too, and that's going to change, and especially because I'm already being suppressed anyways. At this point, let's fall right now at this point. So, America first, Christ is King, Christ is Lord, seek first the kingdom of God. Deport Kash Patel, deport Pam Bondi, and chain any woman over 100 pounds to the kitchen sink. Or no, I said that backwards. Deport any woman over 100 pounds, and then the rest of them chained to the kitchen sink. Must be having an off day. But with that, tomorrow, I should be making a video tomorrow. I might do a free reign stream tomorrow. I'll let you guys know in the Discord, but I should be streaming, doing both tomorrow. And also be on the lookout for the circuit. That'll be with me and Zeb Boykin at 3 o'clock on the NAV channel as well. And with that, I'm rooting for you guys. Make sure you're taking care of yourselves. Don't black pill. There's always hope. It's, as cringy and as LARPy as it may sound, like, I will never not lose hope. I will maintain that kernel of positivity for as long as God will allow me to. And so with that, I hope you guys maintain that focus well too. Lock in, study up, look smacks, go to the gym, be better men, be machines, be impossible to kill, or at least be hard to kill. And with that, guys, I will see you more than likely tomorrow. Take care.
Get up and get out. Get out. Get out.
I have a question for you.
Say Christ is Lord. Say Christ is Lord. Say it. You say Christ is Lord. Get out. Get out. Christ is Lord.